My name is John Mitchell. I'm 84 years old, and I live alone in a house in Newton, Massachusetts that's too big for one person. Yesterday morning, I received a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text message, but an actual physical letter with a stamp and everything. The return address was from a lawyer's office in Dorchester. Inside was a letter from a man named Marcus Webb. Marcus died 3 weeks ago. I hadn't spoken to him in 58 years. I'm going to tell you something that I've carried with me for most of my adult life, and I'm telling you because I'm running out of time to say it. Not because I think confession will absolve me of anything. It won't. But because maybe, just maybe, one of you watching this will recognize yourself in my story and make a different choice than I did. The letter was handwritten. Marcus must have written it knowing he was dying. His handwriting was shaky, but the words were clear. There was one line I keep reading over and over. You let them destroy me, and you never said a word. Now you'll know why it hurt twice as much. Attached to the letter was a birth certificate from 1943. Father, Robert Mitchell. That was my father's name. Marcus Webb was my half-brother, and I watched my family destroy him because he was black. I watched and I did nothing. Let me back up. I need to tell this properly, from the beginning, because the details matter even though I wish they didn't. I met Marcus in 1965. We were both at Boston University, though we ran in completely different circles. I was studying business, coasting on my father's connections and money. Marcus was in the engineering program, working 2 jobs to pay his tuition, brilliant in a way that made professors take notice. We met in the library one night when we were both there late. I was struggling with some basic accounting concepts, and he helped me without being asked. We got to talking. He told me about an idea he had for a new kind of industrial valve system, something that could revolutionize manufacturing efficiency. I didn't understand half of what he was saying technically, but I understood opportunity when I heard it. Over the next few months, we became something like friends, or at least I thought we were friends. Looking back now, I wonder if Marcus ever really trusted me, or if he just saw me for what I was useful for. I had connections. I had access to capital, or at least to people who had capital. My father owned a manufacturing company, knew bankers, knew investors, knew the people who made things happen in Boston. Marcus had the brilliance and the work ethic. It seemed like a natural partnership. We started working together on his valve design. I'd help with the business side, the patents, the funding. He'd handle the engineering. We were going to be partners, split everything 50-50. I was genuinely excited about it. For maybe the first time in my life, I was working on something real, something that mattered, something that wasn't just handed to me because of my last name. I made the mistake of mentioning Marcus to my father over dinner one night in early 1966. I was proud, excited. I told him about this brilliant engineer I was working with, about the patent we were filing, about the business we were going to build. My father asked questions. What's his name? Where's he from? Where does his family come from? And when I finally mentioned that Marcus was black, the temperature in that dining room dropped about 20 degrees. My father didn't yell. He never yelled. He just looked at me with this expression of profound disappointment and said very quietly that I would not be going into business with that person. Not people like that. Not someone like him. He said it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world, like he was simply explaining a basic fact of life that I should have already understood. I tried to argue. I really did, at least at first. I said Marcus was qualified, that he was brilliant, that this was a good opportunity. My father cut me off. He said I didn't understand how the world worked yet, that there were certain lines you didn't cross, certain associations you didn't make if you wanted to be taken seriously. He said if I pursued this partnership, it would reflect poorly on the family, on the business, on our name. He said I needed to choose what mattered more. I should have walked out right then. I should have told him he was wrong, that he was a bigot, that I didn't care about his approval, but I didn't. I sat there and I listened and I nodded and I told myself I'd find a way to make it work anyway. But my father wasn't finished. Over the next year, 1967, I watched him systematically dismantle everything Marcus had built. I didn't see all of it happening at first. I was blind to it, or maybe I just didn't want to see. But piece by piece, Marcus's life started falling apart. The bank loan Marcus had secured for the prototype development got canceled. No explanation, just a letter saying the bank had reassessed the risk. Marcus tried other banks. None of them would touch him. Then the workshop space he was renting, this little industrial unit in Roxbury where he was building the prototype, the landlord suddenly decided not to renew the lease, gave him 30 days to clear out. Marcus found another space, but that fell through too, then another. He started getting pulled over by police, constantly, for nothing. Broken taillight that wasn't broken. Suspicious behavior that was just him walking to his car. 3 times in 2 months he was arrested for vagrancy. Just picked up, held overnight, released without charges. It was harassment, plain and simple, designed to wear him down, to make him afraid, to break him. The patent application we'd filed together somehow got lost in the system. Then when Marcus tried to refile it under his own name, suddenly there was a competing application from a company connected to my father's business associates. They claimed they'd been working on the same design independently. It was Marcus's work, his drawings, his calculations, but with enough small changes that it would have cost a fortune to fight in court. A fortune Marcus didn't have. I knew what was happening, of course I knew. I wasn't stupid. My father never said anything explicit to me about it, but I could see it. I could see Marcus drowning, and I could see my father's hand on his head holding him under. And I did nothing. I told myself there was nothing I could do. I told myself that if I helped Marcus, my father would just come after me too. I told myself that Marcus would be fine, that he was resourceful, that he'd figure it out. I told myself 1,000 lies to justify my silence. I had $15,000 in a savings account, money my grandmother had left me. I could have given it to Marcus, could have helped him get new space, hire a lawyer, fight back. I never offered. I had connections of my own by then, people I'd met at university, young professionals who weren't like my father. I could have introduced Marcus to them, opened doors. I didn't. I had a voice. I could have spoken up at family dinners, told my father what he was doing was wrong, stood up for what was right. I chose silence. The moment I remember most clearly happened in August of 1967. It was a Sunday evening. I was at my parents' house for dinner, something we did every week. My mother had made pot roast. We were sitting around the dining room table, my father at the head, my mother to his right, me across from her. The good china, the silver candlesticks, everything proper and civilized. There was a knock at the door. My father went to answer it, and I heard Marcus's voice, quiet, desperate. He was asking to speak with me. My father told him this wasn't an appropriate time, that he should leave. I heard Marcus say, please, that he just needed 5 minutes, that it was important. My father called me to the door. I walked out into the hallway, and there was Marcus standing on the porch. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight. He had this hollowed-out look in his eyes that I'd never seen before. He looked at me, and he said my name, just my name, John. He told me they were destroying everything, that he didn't know how, but someone was systematically taking apart his entire life. The loans, the workspace, the police harassment, the patent. He said he thought it might be connected to my father somehow, to the business, to people we knew. He said he needed my help. He said I had connections, that my father knew people, that maybe I could talk to someone, figure out what was happening, make it stop. My father was standing right there in the doorway. I could feel him watching me. I could feel the weight of his disappointment, his judgment, his expectations. Behind him I could see into the dining room, the table set with family silver, the life I was supposed to inherit, the company that would one day be mine, the future that was already mapped out, comfortable and secure. I looked at Marcus. I looked at my father. I looked back into that dining room, and I chose the dining room. I told Marcus I didn't think I could help, that I didn't know anything about his situation, that maybe he should talk to a lawyer. My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Marcus stood there for 30 seconds waiting for me to say something else, something real. I could see him hoping I'd change my mind, that I'd find some courage somewhere. I didn't. He nodded slowly. He looked me right in the eyes and said, "I understand." He said I was just like my father. Then he turned around and walked away. I never spoke to him again, 58 years. I went back to the dinner table. I sat down. I ate pot roast. My father asked me what that was about, and I said it was nothing, just someone I used to know from school. My mother asked if everything was all right, and I said yes, everything was fine. We finished dinner. We had dessert. We talked about business, about the weather, about nothing that mattered. I want you to understand something about racism that nobody teaches you in school. It doesn't need white hoods and burning crosses to work. It functions perfectly well in nice houses with family silver and polite conversation. My father never lynched anyone. He never threw a brick through a window or spray painted a slur on a wall. He just knew people. One phone call to a banker, another to a property owner, a third to someone in the police department. That's all it took. Marcus was arrested 3 more times that fall, never charged with anything. Just picked up, held, released. Each time a little more of him broke. He stopped trying to find workspace, stopped trying to get financing, stopped trying to rebuild what had been taken from him. By the end of 1967, he'd given up on the valve design entirely. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd started drinking, that he'd moved out of Boston, that he was working construction jobs, barely getting by. I inherited my father's company in 1985 when he retired, sold it in 2005 for $14 million. I invested well, lived comfortably, never wanted for anything. Meanwhile, Marcus drifted through life. Manual labor jobs when he could get them, drinking when he couldn't. He never married, never had children, never built anything lasting. He died alone in a 1-room apartment in Dorchester 3 weeks ago. Liver failure, decades of alcohol abuse. The letter his lawyer sent me included that birth certificate. My father had an affair with a woman named Sarah Webb in 1943 before he married my mother. Marcus was born that year. My father never acknowledged him, never supported him, never spoke his name. But Marcus knew. The letter explained that his mother had told him when he was 18, told him who his father was, who his half-brother was. When Marcus approached me in 1965, when he proposed our partnership, he already knew we were brothers. He knew, and he hoped maybe that would matter. That blood would mean something, that I would be different than our father. He watched his own brother choose their father's side, choose whiteness, choose inheritance, choose silence. He came to me for help in 1967, knowing we shared blood, knowing I was family, and I turned him away. I've carried this for 58 years, but this story isn't really about me. It's about you, because I know you've been at that table. Your uncle makes a racist joke at Thanksgiving. Your father makes a comment about those people. Your boss passes over a qualified candidate for someone who looks like him. Your friend says something casually cruel, and you stay quiet. You don't want to make it awkward. You don't want to cause a scene. You don't want to lose something. And I lost Marcus, but Marcus lost everything. He lost his business, his career, his dignity, his hope, his entire future. And when you stay silent in that meeting, at that family dinner, in that conversation with friends, you're making the same choice I made. You're choosing comfort over humanity. The letter ended with this line: "You were never a good man, John. You never even tried." He's right. I wasn't. I'm not. I could have spoken up. I could have used my privilege, my position, my connections to protect my own brother. I chose not to, and that choice killed him. Not immediately, but slowly over years of alcohol and depression and the certainty that even his own blood didn't think he was worth fighting for. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking your situation is different. Your father is old, set in his ways, won't change. It's just a joke. Nobody means anything by it. You need that job. You can't afford to make waves. You don't want to lose your family. I thought all those things too. They're all lies we tell ourselves to justify cowardice. Marcus was 22 years old when we met. 22. He had an entire future ahead of him. It was stolen from him not by one act of violence, but by hundreds of small acts of racism that good people executed while I sat quietly and let it happen. My father made the phone calls, but I provided the silence that allowed him to make them. I'm telling you this because you still have a choice. I don't anymore. I'm 84 years old. Marcus is dead. My father died in 1992 believing he'd done the right thing. And I live in an empty house with $14 million and the certainty that I wasted the only chance I ever had to be brave. When you're at that table, in that meeting, in that conversation, where someone is being racist, and you feel that discomfort in your chest, that moment where you know you should speak up but you're afraid, remember me. Remember that I stayed quiet. Remember that my silence cost an entire lifetime. Remember that Marcus gave me 30 seconds to choose, and I chose the pot roast on my plate. Don't choose the plate. Speak, even if it costs you something, even if it's hard, even if you lose something, because what you'll lose will never be as much as what the other person is already losing through your silence. I can't save Marcus anymore, but you can save the next person. You can be what I wasn't. You can choose courage instead of comfort. Please, don't be me. Don't carry this for the next 58 years. Don't wait for a letter from someone who died telling you that you were never good enough. Speak up now, while there's still time. So that's the story. Before you go, I'm really curious. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories reach. And if you found value in this story, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep sharing these experiences with all of you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.